Hi, you. Welcome in. Set down the day like a heavy bag by the door. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw loosen. If your tongue is pressed to the roof of your mouth, let it fall. We're going to learn something gentle tonight, and it's perfectly okay if you drift while you do. This is a quiet corner of the internet, made for soft curiosity. No timers, no pop quizzes, just ideas that arrive like steam from a mug. If it feels nice, you can tap like or subscribe, but only when your hands aren't busy being blankets. If you want to, share where you're listening from. I love the small map we make together. Living rooms, dorms, sleeper trains, night shift breaks, and cats who refuse to respect personal space. Take a slow breath. In like you're smelling warm bread. Out like you're cooling soup. This space is for relaxation first, learning second. You don't have to try hard. Let the words be rain on a window. Your mind can follow one drop and ignore the rest. Now the big, simple question, the kind that fits in a pocket but stretches to the horizon. Why does the night sky sometimes hang up long curtains of light? Soft green, a little red at the edges, sometimes a hint of purple thread. Why do those colors arrive mostly near the top and bottom of our planet? And why do they move like fabric in a quiet draft? The short answer you can hold for later. Thin air can glow. Not because anyone lit a match, but because tiny visitors bring it a little energy, and the air lets that energy go as color. That's the core. Everything else is just decoration on a cozy sweater. We'll go slowly. We'll define before we name. We'll paint the picture first, then we'll put a label on the frame. If a term pops up, it will have a handrail right next to it. When we say solar wind, we'll mean a stream of tiny bits coming from the sun. When we say magnetosphere, we'll mean Earth's invisible bubble that guides those bits. When we say oxygen, we'll be talking about the familiar stuff and breath-turning extra energy into green or red light. You never have to memorize. You can always let it wash through, like tide over toes. Picture this. Earth wears an invisible shield. It's not a hard shell. It's more like an umbrella that not only blocks the rain, but also guides the drops into the gutters. Far away, the sun sheds tiny pieces all the time, the way a parade leaves confetti in the air after everyone goes home. Most of that confetti floats by, minding its business. Some of it drifts toward our umbrella. The shield doesn't just say no, it says this way, and it points those visitors toward the poles. That's where the porch-lights live. Another breath. In, soft as a yawn you don't have to finish. Out, softer still. Here's what you can expect from our time. Plain English steps, short sentences, plenty of familiar images. We'll visit kitchens and sidewalks and train tracks. We'll use umbrellas, wind chimes, and apartment lights as guides. If you lose a thread, another will appear within a few lines. You will not miss the point. The point will keep circling back like a friendly cat who suspects you might have snacks. First promise, we won't rush. Every minute or so, we'll pause and collect the simple version. For now, the simple version is this. The sun sends tiny travelers. Earth's shield guides them to the poles. High above us, our air, oxygen and nitrogen, turns that gift of energy into gentle light. Second promise, we'll keep your nervous system in mind. No loud alarms here. Some facts about space weather can sound big, but tonight they're small and calm. Think of them as background hum, like a refrigerator at midnight, steady and safe. Third promise, we'll keep the door open to wonder without the pressure to get it. You can fall asleep, and that still counts as learning. Your brain does plenty of sorting while you snooze. If you wake up later remembering only green light means oxygen, that's a win. If you remember nothing except the feeling of softness, that's a win too. Now a gentle nudge at a common idea. Many people picture auroras as sunlight bouncing off clouds. It's a fair guess. Light hits, light reflects. But this glow is different. It usually arrives when the sun is not shining on that spot. It shows up as the world grows dark and the stars switch on. The light isn't a mirror, it's a reply. The air itself speaks. Think of your living room lamp. Flip the switch, and the bulb doesn't reflect light. It makes light because electricity gives it energy. Up above, the switch is a little bump from a tiny traveler. The bulb is an atom or a molecule. The light is the color your eyes see. It's as homely as that. The sky is full of very small lamps, no bigger than an atom, and sometimes they turn on. We'll soon meet the names for those travelers. We'll soon peek at the shape of the shield that guides them, but not yet. First, permission. You can let the map arrive border by border. No need for all the countries at once. Micro summary to tuck in your pocket. Not a reflection, not a fire, but a reply. The air gets a nudge, keeps the energy for a blink, then sighs it back out as color. Another breath. Picture a curtain near a slightly open window. The room is quiet. A small breeze finds the fabric. It sways. It settles. It sways again. That's the feeling of the aurora's motion, not a drum line, a lullaby. If you're listening from a place where the sky rarely shows this glow, that's okay. You can still borrow it. Your mind is good at travel. Let it stand for a moment on a dark shoreline, boots in the crunchy snow. Up and away, a band of green draws a slow smile across the sky. At the edges, a warmer red leans in. The stars peek through like pinholes in velvet. Somewhere miles above, a tiny visitor just tapped an oxygen atom on the shoulder. The atom took a heartbeat, then answered in emerald. We're going to keep company with that picture. We'll learn which doors the visitors use. We'll learn why the poles are welcoming and the middle of the planet is shy. We'll learn why green is common and why purple sometimes stitches the lower edge. But for now, rest in the simplest truth of the night. Air can sing in color, and you live on a world that turns incoming energy into something beautiful. Take one more slow breath with me. In, without hurry. Out, without effort. You're doing fine. You're already learning, and you don't have to hold on tightly. The next part will bring in the soft names. The wind that isn't wind, the shield that isn't hard, the colors that belong to breath itself. For now, let the curtain sway. Before we wander further, a warm check-in. How's your breathing? If it's a little shallow, let's make a tiny adjustment. In through the nose like you're smelling rain on dry pavement. Out through the mouth like you're fogging a window to draw a smiley face. There you go. This space is roomy. No one's rushing you to the end of the paragraph. You're listening with thousands of others in quiet corners. A balcony in Karachi, a dorm bed in Manila, a night bus through Finland, a kitchen table in Nairobi, a couch with a dozing dog in Toronto. I love knowing our small circle stretches around the planet like a string of nightlights. If you feel like it, add your pin to that map later by telling me where you're tuning in from. If you don't, that's fine too. Your presence is enough. A soft reminder while we settle. This is for relaxation first, learning second. If your eyes get heavy, you're doing it right. If you drift away and come back, you're doing it right. If you remember only one image, that's still learning. Think of ideas like feathers. The ones you need will land. Let's give the big question a little more light, the way you tilt a book toward a lamp. We're asking, why does thin air way up high sometimes glow in calm colors? Why does this glow favor the far north and far south? And why does it move like silk in a draft instead of bursting like fireworks? We'll keep the promises from before. Define before naming. Name before numbers. Start with pictures, then attach gentle labels. When we introduce a term, it will arrive with a companion image, a hand to hold. If the term wanders off later, the image will stay with you. First picture. The sun is a neighbor who's always tidying and always shedding a little glitter anyway. Tiny charged bits drift outward in every direction. Most days, they're not dramatic, more like dust motes in sunlight. Some days, there's extra confetti. Either way, Earth doesn't just sit there taking it. Our planet wears an invisible bubble that pushes or guides and organizes. The bubble is friendly and fussy at the same time, like a librarian who both hushes and helps you find the right shelf. Second picture, paths. Invisible lines loop from the north of the planet to the south and back again, like very tall train tracks arcing through space and diving into the ground near the poles. The visitors from the sun care about these tracks. They follow them the way spilled marbles find the grooves in a wooden floor. Where the tracks meet the air, near the poles, the action happens. Third picture, lamps in a tall apartment building. Each floor turns on a different color when a guest presses the doorbell. Oxygen lights green on one floor and red on the penthouse. Nitrogen adds purple on the lower floors. The guests press. The lamps glow for a moment, then dim, ready for the next knock. That's all an aurora is. A neighborhood of very small lamps, answering very small doorbells, millions at a time. A short micro-summary to pocket, tiny visitors, guided paths, small lamps. That's the trio we'll carry. If you like tiny jokes, here's one to rest your mind on. When the sky does laundry, auroras are its delicate cycle. No spin, just swish. The clothesline is very long, and the cloth is green. Now, a gentle myth correction, offered with a smile. People often assume the poles glow more because they're cold. Cozy guess, but not quite. The glow gathers there because the invisible doors are there. The tracks dive into the air at the poles, and so the visitors find the entryways, not because cold, but because open. If you remember nothing else, that little because can carry you. Not because temperature, but because tracks. Another breath, like lifting a teacup and setting it down. In, outside. Let's touch the idea of names lightly. We'll soon say solar wind, and you'll know it just means that steady flow of tiny, eager travelers from the sun. We'll soon say magnetosphere, and you'll recognize it as the bubble that both protects and points. We'll mention oxygen and nitrogen, familiar old friends from breathing and balloons, now turning borrowed energy into color. We'll keep the terms tidy and the sentences small. The goal isn't to pack your head, it's to furnish it with a few comfortable chairs. If you're the kind of listener who likes a rhythm, here's the one we'll keep. We'll ask a calm question. We'll offer a fresh comparison: umbrellas, wind chimes, train tracks, apartment lamps. We'll share the plain English rule. Then we'll tuck it in with a soothing line so your mind can reset before the next step. Every minute or so, a little pause, like opening a window for fresh air. Another tiny invitation. If this gentle pace feels good, you can tap like or subscribe at any time. It helps these quiet lessons find other sleepy minds. If not now, maybe later, when your hands aren't busy keeping the blanket in exactly the right position. Let's welcome one more image to carry forward. Picture a globe wearing two scarves, one around the north, one around the south. They aren't tight. They float a little above the surface. Some nights, the scarves glow. The color deepens and loosens. Folds appear, threads a shimmer, and then slowly they fade. That's what watchers on the ground call the northern lights, or the southern lights. Two scarves, one planet. A sign that the shield is not only working, but making art. We won't open all the drawers yet, but a little peek won't hurt. There are ways the invisible bubble briefly unzips to let more visitors in. There are moments when stored energy in the long tail behind Earth snaps back like a bent branch released, sending ripples along those magnetic tracks. That's why the curtains ripple and the arcs march. We'll get there gently. For now, rest in the simplest heart of the matter. Energy arrives, the shield guides, the air replies in color. A final micro summary to close this welcome. This is your calm classroom. You're allowed to drift. The plan is images first, names second. The big question has a small answer. Air can glow when tiny travelers share a little energy. The poles shine not because they're cold, but because the doors are open. And you, wherever you are part of a circle of listeners who like their science with a blanket. One last slow breath. In, so your ribs make a quiet, friendly expansion. Out, so your shoulders soften a notch you didn't know was there. You're ready. The journey ahead is unhurried, plain, and kind. When you're ready to move on, we'll step through the first quiet doorway and meet the breeze that isn't air and the shield that isn't a shell. Until then, let the idea sit in your lap like a warm cat. The sky can answer in color, and that answer is called an aurora. Let's start with the picture most people carry around without thinking about it. You look up, you see soft green waves, maybe a red edge, and your brain says, that must be sunlight bouncing off clouds, the way afternoon light can turn a building gold. It's a kind guess. It uses a rule that works many places. Light hits, light reflects, we see a glow. The mind loves simple mirrors. But auroras don't behave like reflections. Reflections follow the sun. They brighten when daylight does. Auroras prefer darkness. They favor late evening and midnight hours when mirrors go to sleep. If they were just sunlight bouncing around, you'd expect them at noon as well, splashed across the whole sky. Instead, they circle the far north and far south, like two halos that don't visit the equator often. Already, the mirror story starts to feel loose at the seams. Another friendly guess, fireworks that forgot to make noise. The colors hang, the edges ripple, and it feels like a slow-motion finale. Fireworks explode from a point and fade fast. Auroras glide. They step forward, then hold, then fold. Sometimes they brighten like someone turned a dimmer switch. Sometimes they sway like a curtain near a cracked window. If fireworks are exclamation points, auroras are long vowels. They stretch. Let's pause and lean in. If it isn't a mirror and it isn't a hidden firework, what is it? Here is the kinder truth, simple enough to keep. Thin air can make its own light. Not because something is burning, but because tiny visitors bring small gifts of energy. They care about magnets the way a compass needle does. They take advice from invisible magnetic paths. Next, the tracks themselves. Earth makes them. A big, calm magnetic field spreads around the planet, curving out and back, looping from north to south. All of that together forms a protective magnetosphere. If the word feels long, keep the easy version, the shield. It both blocks and guides. It keeps most travelers out, then quietly points some toward the ends of the world where the tracks dive into the sky. Now the lamps that answer the doorbells. Up high, the air is thin, and it's made mostly of the old friends you breathe every day, oxygen and nitrogen. When either one gets a small nudge of energy, it can hold that gift for a moment and then let it go as light. Oxygen loves to glow green at middle heights and deep red higher up. Nitrogen adds purple or pink along the lower edges, like a neat hem at the bottom of the curtain. No test on this, just colors singing their favorite notes. With the names in place, return to the first guess, reflections. If auroras were sunlight bouncing off cloud decks, the color would match daylight rules. It would brighten with the sun. It would spread anywhere clouds float. But auroras keep turning up in 2 rings near the poles, often long after sunset. That pattern whispers, magnetism, not mirrors. Mirrors don't care about Earth's magnetic tracks. The glow does. Another common picture needs smoothing. Flames in the sky. Fire needs fuel and oxygen and makes heat and smoke. The aurora's light is different. It's not a burning. It's a reply from atoms and molecules that got a tiny nudge. No crackle, no soot, no smell. Just quiet color. Think of a book light, not a bonfire. Why the poles again, but a little deeper? Because the shield lines dive into the air there. Imagine rolling marbles on a smooth tilted tray. The depressions near the edges collect them. The shield's shape makes those depressions near the poles, not in the middle. The travelers spiral down the tracks like helixes on a long slide and meet the air where the tracks end. They don't aim for cold places. They aim for open doors. Why green so often? Because oxygen is common up there, and at many auroral heights, it loves to answer in green. The green note is easy for your eyes to hear in the dark. Red happens too, but higher up where the air is thinner and quieter, so the glow can hold energy a little longer before letting it go. That makes red a softer, slower color. Nitrogen's purple trim shows where the curtain brushes the lower sky, where other nudges are more frequent. Why the movement that looks like fabric, not sparks? Remember, the travelers don't arrive in one bang. They flow. Sometimes they come in waves, like ripples on a long clothesline. The shield stores and releases energy in gentle pulses. Lines of light brighten, then march, then soften. It's a dance written in magnetism and answered by air. Let's plant a few small friendly rules you can recall without effort. Rule 1, air can glow by itself after a nudge. Rule 2, magnets make paths, and tiny travelers prefer paths. Rule 3, the ends of those paths enter the sky near the poles, so that's where the lamps get visitors. If you only keep those, you can explain most of what your eyes see. We can add a tiny myth check that often sneaks in. People worry they need snow or ice to see auroras. The lights don't care about snow. Snow cares about latitude the same way auroras do. So the two often meet, but the glow is about paths, not temperature. You could stand under a summer sky at a high latitude and still see the lights if the night is dark enough and the travelers are lively. Not because cold, but because tracks. Another small, cozy thought. The quiet of the show is not a trick. There's no thunder waiting behind the curtain. The energy is real, but most of it moves as currents high above, sliding through thin air and guided by the shield. Your ears don't catch it. Your eyes do. Sound would be like shouting in a library. The aurora prefers a whisper. Now that we've settled the first picture and shared the kinder one, let's give you a pocket-sized story you can tell yourself later. You step outside on a dark night. The northern sky holds a faint band. It grows stronger, smooth as a brushstroke. It isn't daylight pretending. It isn't a secret firework. Up above, a stream of tiny travelers met the shield's tracks. They spiraled down to meet the air and handed it a little energy. Oxygen said thank you with green. The band rippled because the travelers arrived in waves along the tracks. After a while, the flow eased, the lamps dimmed, and the sky returned to starlight. That's it. A visit, a reply, a rest. If there's room for a tiny smile, hold this line. If the planet had a laundry day, auroras would be the gentle swish cycle, delicates only, no spin, no hurry, colors safe. The machine hums, the fabric glows, and the air gives that energy back as color. Think of polite doorbell rings and porch lights that blink on for a moment, then relax. That's the glow. Picture the air far above you as a neighborhood yet with many tiny lamps. Most nights, those lamps are off. Then, invisible guests tap at 1,000,000 doors. Each tap leaves a little extra energy behind. Each lamp keeps it for a heartbeat and answers with a flicker. Green here, red there, a purple thread along the lower edge. No flames, no sparks, just tiny gifts and tiny replies. This is a softer rule than mirrors and explosions, and it accounts for the quiet behavior you see. Why the darkness? Because the lamps show best when the sun isn't washing the sky with daylight. Why the poles? Because the guests prefer to travel along certain paths that end there, the way marbles in a tilted box roll into the corners. Why the glide? Because the guests arrive in flows and waves, not in blasts. They write long sentences across the sky. We can talk about the guests without naming them yet. They are very small, smaller than dust, moving quickly, the kind of things that care about magnets the way a compass needle does. They use invisible routes in space, as if tall train tracks looped from one end of the planet to the other. Those tracks dip into the air near the poles, which is why the neighborhoods there get most of the doorbell rings. If you can hold only one picture, keep the tracks. Tracks explain a lot. Sometimes the guests arrive like a gentle parade, steady and calm. Sometimes extra handfuls spill out, and the glow strengthens. Even then, the feeling up above is more swish than boom. If the sky does laundry, auroras are its delicate cycle. No spin, just swish. The fabric is light, mostly green, with a red hem when conditions are just right. Let's take care of the mirror idea a little more, because it's so tempting. A mirror light would paint everything equally, without caring where the planet's invisible tracks run. It wouldn't draw rings around poles. It wouldn't build arcs that line up like stacked ribbons in the north and south. And it wouldn't continue when the sun has gone to the other side of the world. The glow you see is not borrowed. It's created on the spot by air that has just been nudged. If this sounds strange, air making light by itself, think about that moment when you rub your hands on a sweater and touch a doorknob. Tiny charges moved, and a spark answered. Up high, no spark jumps to your hand, but the idea is familiar. A nudge can become light, or think of a neon sign in a diner window. Electricity encourages the gas inside to glow. High above, the guests are the encouragement. The gas, oxygen and nitrogen, are the ones who glow. The sign is the sky. We're keeping the names gentle tonight, but it can help to have a few placed like labels on the back of a frame, not on the front where they can scratch the picture. The guests, when we do name them, are electrons and ions. They're just tiny pieces from the sun, eager and light. The tracks belong to Earth's invisible magnetic bubble, a shield that both protects and points. Later, we'll call that bubble the Magnetosphere, but for now, let it stay the shield. The glowing lamps are in the air, you know. Oxygen from breath, nitrogen from balloons. Those two do most of the painting. It's okay if those words slide by, like fish in a clear stream. You don't have to catch them all. What matters is the shape of the story. Air makes light after tiny visitors tap on it. The planet's shield guides those visitors to the ends of the world. The glow prefers the quiet of night, the high paths near the poles, and the slow, steady swish of a curtain. Why does this matter for your first impression? Because once you replace mirrors and fireworks with lamps and doorbells, the rest of the story gets easier. The places the glow appears, the times it shows up, the way it moves, all of that starts to feel sensible. You don't have to argue with daylight or imagine silent explosions. You just picture a neighborhood of tiny lamps answering polite knocks. Micro summary you can keep in a pocket, not a reflection, not a firework. Thin air makes light after small taps from tiny travelers, and Earth's invisible tracks guide those travelers to the poles. The result is a curtain that sways rather than shouts. When you're ready, we'll attach a few soft names to the picture so it can sit more firmly in your mind. For now, breathe like a room settling at night, easy in and easy out, and let the mirror idea drift away like steam. Let's gently bring in a few names so the picture can sit more securely without getting heavy. First, the tiny travelers. When they arrive as negative bits, we call them electrons. When they arrive as positive bits or small groups, we say ions. That's all the word means here. Tiny pieces with a little electric personality. Then it all goes quiet again, ready for next time. Let's close this section with the soft labels lined up one more time, not to memorize, just to be friendly. Electrons and ions are the tiny visitors. The magnetosphere is the shield of magnetic paths. Oxygen and nitrogen are the lamps in the air that glow back. Replace reflection with reply, fireworks with curtain, and the sky starts to make calm sense. Micro summary you can tuck behind your ear. Not a reflection, not a flame, just thin air turning borrowed energy into color, guided by the planet's invisible tracks toward the poles, moving in waves that choose to sway rather than shout. Breathe once more, easy and light. Imagine a room where a curtain lifts and falls with the softest draft. The house is safe, the night is kind, the lesson has a place to settle. Let's meet the breeze that isn't air. When we say solar wind, we're not talking about gusts you can feel on your face. We mean a steady outflow of tiny pieces from the sun, little charged bits streaming outward in all directions, day and night. Think of a parade that never ends. The confetti drifts, and it keeps drifting for millions of miles. Most of it passes by without fuss. Some of it wanders near our neighborhood. Charged simply means these tiny pieces pay attention to magnets and electric fields. If you've ever watched a compass needle turn, you've seen what attention to a magnet looks like. These travelers, many of them electrons and ions, listen to invisible guidance. They don't move like dust only. They move like dust that can read gentle road signs written in magnetism. The sun is generous and a little messy. Even on calm days, it sheds a light rain of particles. On busier days, it tosses extra handfuls. Those bursts have names. If you like a label, coronal mass ejections are the big confetti throws, and high-speed streams are the fast lanes that peel off from open areas on the sun's surface. You don't need to hold the terms. The feeling is enough. Sometimes the parade is quiet. Sometimes the drumline shows up. Here's a helpful picture to carry. The wind doesn't travel alone. It brings along the sun's magnetic field, like invisible threads woven through the confetti. As the flow moves outward, those threads spiral into space, wrapping around the solar system in a gentle curve. If you prefer a pocket phrase, call it the sun's magnetic breeze. It's not just particles, it's particles with a pattern. When this wind reaches Earth, our planet doesn't simply take the hit. We wear a protective bubble, an invisible magnetic shield that meets the flow before it reaches the thick air. Upstream of that shield, the wind makes a kind of bow wave, the way air piles up in front of a car's windshield on the highway. The stream diverts, slows, and stirs. Most of it glides around and moves on, continuing its long trip past us. Behind Earth, on the night side, the shield stretches out into a long tail, like a windsock tugged by a steady breeze. That tail isn't just decoration. It's a place where the shield stores some of the wind's energy for a while, like a rubber band held back and ready to release. Later in our story, that stored energy will help explain why the aurora can suddenly brighten and ripple. For now, keep bow wave in front, windsock tail behind. It's an easy map. You might wonder, if the wind is steady, why aren't auroras on every night? Most of the time, the shield redirects the flow so gently that only a few travelers find the right doors. On quiet nights, the porch lights up high barely flicker. On livelier nights, when the sun's magnetic threads align in a helpful way, or when extra confetti arrives, the doors open wider. More visitors find the paths toward the poles. That's when the sky brightens. A small comfort. This constant breeze has been blowing for billions of years, and your planet has been wearing its shield for a very long time. The system is ordinary in the best sense, reliable, daily, almost domestic. You can imagine the sun as the universe's untidy neighbor who sweeps the front step and accidentally sends glitter into everyone's yard. Most days, it's just a sparkle. Sometimes it's a bit more. Either way, our yard has a fence and tidy garden paths that keep things orderly. Let's keep the cognitive load soft. One idea at a time. First idea. The solar wind is a stream of tiny, charged travelers coming from the sun. Not air, not sound, just particles and magnetism moving through space. Second idea. Charged means magnet-aware. These travelers follow hints from magnetic fields, the way iron filings line up near a magnet. The sun's field rides along with them like threads in cloth. Third idea. Earth's magnetic shield meets this flow. It makes a bow wave in front, diverts the stream around us, and stretches into a tail behind us. Most of the wind goes around and continues on its way. The wind carries the sun's magnetic pattern with it, like threads woven into cloth. Our shield is sturdy and smart. It blocks, it guides, it stores, it releases. The angle of the sun's threads at the meeting place can open or soften the doors. When more energy flows in, more lamps answer, and the sky grows livelier. None of this asks you to memorize. The shapes do the work. Parades, threads, shield, doors. That's the set. If you like a cozy comparison, hold this one. The sun is the neighbor who sheds glitter on the shared walkway. Earth is the neighbor with a good mat and a tidy hallway. Most of the sparkles stay outside. Some make it onto the rug and catch the light in pretty ways. Every so often, a big bag of craft supplies tips over. The hallway gets brighter for a while. Then everyone sweeps, smiles, and carries on. You might wonder about time. Does the wind arrive quickly or slowly? Both, this depending on the flavor. The everyday stream takes its time crossing the great distance. The faster streams and big bubbles arrive sooner. But you don't need hours or miles. You just need the rhythm, steady background, occasional quickening, sometimes a swell. Another question fits here. If the wind is always there, why don't we always notice? Because daylight paints over faint glows, city lights clutter the dark, clouds hide the upper air, and our eyes prefer bright edges. The aurora likes clean darkness. It likes patient watching. Even when it's present, it may be a whisper, not a shout. Cameras can help, but your eyes can learn to notice too, especially when the wind's flavor changes and the doors open wider. Let's give the bow wave and the tail one more gentle pass. The bow wave is simply where the wind first meets resistance. The flow slows, warms, and diverts. Right behind that wave, the stirred layer jostles like leaves in a shallow eddy. Then the wind slides along the shield's surface, around the sides, and past the planet. Behind us, the tail pulls long. It holds and reshapes the energy, the way a bent branch stores a little spring. When the branch lets go, ripples run down the tracks. Light follows. Pocket summary before we close. Source: the sun's steady, sometimes splashy outflow. Carrier: magnetic threads woven through the flow. Greeter: Earth's shield, forming a bow wave in front and a long tail behind. Gate: doors that open when the threads line up just right. Result: travelers glides down magnetic tracks to the poles, and the upper air answers with color. One last soft smile. The sun is not being rude. It just cannot help but be a little untidy. The solar system has lived with this sprinkle for ages, and our planet has turned it into quiet art. If that's not a friendly arrangement, it's hard to think of a better one. Take an easy breath. Imagine the never-ending parade, the delicate threads, the calm shield, the stretch and release. Most of the stream passes by. Some of it enters and becomes beauty. That's the solar wind you've met tonight, a breeze that never stops, and a story that takes its time. Start with the simplest picture. Your planet wears a quiet shield. It isn't a hard shell. It's more like an umbrella that does two jobs at once. It keeps most of the rain away, the steady sprinkle of tiny travelers from the sun, and it also guides the drops that do arrive into tidy gutters that lead toward the poles. Block, then organize. That's the rhythm. On the sun-facing side, the shield feels a gentle push all the time. Imagine a pillow with a hand resting on it. The surface gives a little, smooth and shallow. That press shapes the front of the bubble. On the night side, where the hand is impressing, the bubble stretches. Think of soft taffy pulled into a long ribbon. This long extension is the tail. It points away from the sun and carries some of the system's stored energy, the way a bent branch holds spring. Before any labels, keep 3 friendly ideas. There is a front where the wind first meets the shield. There is a stirred region just behind that first contact. There is a boundary where outside ends and inside begins. Now the gentle names, each with a one-line handhold. The push-up in front is the bow shock. It's the space version of air piling up against a moving windshield. The oncoming flow gets slowed and warmed and nudged aside. No bang, just a polite shove. Right behind that sits the magnetosheath. It's a region of stirred, redirected flow, the after the push layer. If water moves past a rock in a stream, you see little swirls just downstream. That's the feeling here. Swirls and slides as the flow wraps around the bubble. Then comes the magnetopause. Think of it as the skin of the bubble, the boundary where the outside flow ends and Earth's magnetic territory begins. It isn't a wall you can knock on. It's a place where rules change. Outside, the sun's threads lead. Inside, Earth's threads hold the map. Those threads, Earth's magnetic field lines, are the quiet secret of this bubble. They arc out of the planet near one pole, curve through space, and come back near the other pole. The bubble is made of these lines. They are not just decorations. They are paths. Tiny charged travelers prefer to follow them, the way marbles prefer grooves. This is why the shield doesn't only protect, it organizes. It says, not here, this way. The way usually ends near the poles. Inside the bubble is a calmer zone that rarely makes headlines, but matters to the story. The plasmasphere. Picture a slow-moving inner pool of very thin, charged gas coasting around the planet. It rotates with Earth, close in, steady, and mild. It doesn't throw sparks. It simply fills the inner region with a quiet background of charge that helps set the stage for how currents and waves behave when the lights begin. Hold a soft myth check here. A shield that only blocks would keep everything out all the time. This one is smarter. Most of the time it deflects and guides. Sometimes, when the sun's magnetic threads and Earth's threads line up just so, parts of the boundary open and close like a zipper. That opening has a gentle name, magnetic reconnection, and we'll explore it later. For now, it's enough to know the fabric can part along tidy seams, creating doors that let energy and particles step inside along the field lines. A quick micro summary to keep close. Bow shock in front, stirred layer behind, boundary next, then a world of magnetic paths that loop back to the poles. The bubble shields, but it also tidies, steering visitors to specific ends of the planet. Let's visit the front again for a few breaths. The incoming solar wind does not smash the bubble. It adjusts to it. At the bow shock, the flow slows. In the magnetosheath, it slides around. Along the sides, it glances by like a river, passing a smooth island. Most of the stream continues on. Only a fraction, under the right angles and conditions, finds a seam in the boundary and steps through. Inside, those field lines curve down into the atmosphere near the poles. Think of them as tall train tracks that leave the sky and dive into the upper air. Tiny travelers spiral down those tracks, guided by the magnetic shape. This is the basic reason the poles host the glow more often than the middle latitudes. Not because the air is colder there, but because the tracks meet the air there. Not because temperature, but because geometry. The tail matters too. On the night side, where the bubble stretches, those same field lines are pulled long. Energy from the solar wind can be stored in that stretch. Later, when a zipper opens in the tail, some of that stored energy snaps back toward Earth along the tracks. That snap is a quiet release, like letting go of a pulled ribbon and watching it ripple. Those ripples travel down the lines and help light the lamps high above us, and keep the terms soft. If they drift away, the pictures stay. Bow shock, the first polite shove in front. Magnetosheath, the stirred slide around the bubble. Magnetopause, the boundary skin. Field lines, the paths, the tracks, the guides. Plasmasphere, the calm inner pool. Tail, the long night-side ribbon that stores spring. A tiny smile helps the shapes settle. Your planet wears a very practical hat. On the day side, it's a firm brim holding back the breeze. On the night side, it's a windsock pointing away from the sun. The hat is stylish in a physics sort of way. Another breath, in like patience, out like relief. Why spend this care on the bubble? Because once you feel its shape, the Aurora's habits make sense. Rings around poles, not stripes around the equator. Night-side surprises when stored energy releases. Quiet fronts when the wind changes upstream. You don't need equations to follow this. You only need the umbrella that both blocks and gutters, the pillow press on the day side, the taffy tail on the night side, and the tracks that guide the few travelers who do come in. Pocket recap before we pause. You live under a shield that keeps most of space's sprinkle at bay and rearranges the rest into tidy paths. The front cushions the flow. The sides usher it around. The tail stretches and saves a little energy for later. Inside, calm pools and looping tracks wait. The result isn't chaos, it's choreography. Take a slow, easy breath. Imagine wind chimes that only sing when the breeze finds them. The bubble is like that, silent most of the time, musical when conditions align. In the next part, we'll let the zipper open gently and watch how doors appear along the boundary, but there's no hurry. For now, let the idea rest. A quiet shield, practical and kind, turning incoming fuss into guided grace. Let's walk a little farther inside the bubble and keep the pictures gentle. Start with a feeling. The boundary is not fixed like glass. It moves in and out, slow as breathing. When the solar wind presses harder, the boundary takes a small step inward on the day side. When the press eases, it relaxes outward again. The bubble is responsive, not brittle. That give and take helps it stay whole. Near the top of the planet and the bottom, there are narrow places where some of the field lines touch the outside world more directly. Think of them as open windows where a breeze can find the room. These are called cusps. You don't need the word, keep the idea. They explain why, even in daylight, small patches near the poles can feel the wind's touch more easily. Most of the time, the curtains there only flutter. Sometimes, when the wind brings just the right pattern of threads, the flutter grows. Deeper inside, the bubble holds a few quiet systems that matter for how energy moves. One is a broad belt of drifting charge that circles the planet like a not-too-tight waistband. If you'd like a friendly label, people call it the ring current. During livelier space weather, that belt gets stronger, then slowly fades as the system calms. You don't have to track it. Just know the bubble can store energy in several ways, stretched lines in the tail, a circling belt closer in, and small, steady pools. There are also shelves in the pantry, so to speak, zones where fast-moving particles can get trapped for a while, bouncing and sliding along field lines between the north and south. Those are the radiation belts. We won't linger on them tonight, except to say they are part of the house and usually keep to themselves unless the weather gets rowdy. The main show for Auroras lives higher than your head, but lower than those shelves, where the tracks meet the upper air. The bubble is not quiet in the sense of empty. It hums with gentle electrical traffic. Thin currents flow along the field lines, into and out of the polar atmosphere, then sweep sideways around the polar cap. These loops help close the circuit between space and the air above us. Later, when the lights move quickly, the same loops will play a stronger part. For now, keep the soft rule. The bubble and the air talk to each other through currents that choose the magnetic paths. Now, the zipper we foreshadowed, magnetic reconnection, deserves a patient minute. Picture two sets of magnetic threads pressing near the boundary. The sun's on the outside, Earth's on the inside. When they point in a friendly opposite way, they can snap and swap partners, forming new lines that cross the boundary. That swap opens a door. Energy and particles can then slide along the newly drawn lines toward the poles. It isn't a violent rip. It's a neat stitch change, like rebuttoning a coat so it sits differently on your shoulders. Doors open on the day side and later far back in the tail. The opening and closing can happen again and again, quietly feeding the system. As the tail stores more stretch, it behaves like a long bow being drawn. At some point, lines in the tail reconnect too, making shorter, tighter loops. Those loops snap back toward Earth along the magnetic tracks. The return sends waves racing down the lines, and high above us the lamps brighten. This is the beginning of the dance you'll hear about later, but here it's enough to know where the music starts, in the stretch and release of the bubble's magnetic threads. Let's tidy the main pieces with small, friendly rules. The bubble breathes. Its boundary moves with the pressure of the wind. Paths matter. Field lines are guides, not just decoration. They lead toward the poles. Energy has places. The tail stores stretch, a ring current circles, and calm pools fill the inner rooms. Doors open by stitching. Reconnection swaps magnetic partners and creates neat entry paths. The air answers. Currents flow along the lines into the polar sky, where tiny lamps can glow. If any label feels slippery, let it slide. The pictures will stay. Umbrella that blocks and gutters. Pillow press on the day side. Taffy tail on the night side. A skin that breathes. Tracks that dive into the sky. Zippers that open and close. A small, cozy myth check before we pause. Sometimes people imagine the magnetosphere as a hard dome that keeps everything out until it breaks. That's not the way of it. The bubble is more like a skilled traffic officer at a roundabout. Most cars are directed around the circle and sent on their way. A few, under the right signal, are waved through the correct exit. Orderly, continuous, safe. The beauty in the sky is a side effect of the order, not a sign of failure. Here's a tiny joke to keep the tone light. If Earth were a hat, the day side would be a firm brim, and the night side would be that very practical windsock pointing politely away from the sun. No feathers, just function. We can add one last gentle picture. Inside the bubble, waves can travel along the field lines like notes along strings. Even without a big release in the tail, little taps, changes in the wind, small door openings can send soft ripples down toward the poles. The lamps respond with faint curtains, sometimes too dim for your eyes, but eager for a patient camera. The system is a musical instrument that mostly plays quietly and waits for the right hands to draw out louder phrases. Pocket recap to carry into the next chapter. Front, bow shock. First, polite shove. Next, magnetosheath, stirred slide. Edge, magnetopause, breathing boundary skin. Inside, field lines, tracks, plasmasphere, calm pool, ring current, circling belt. Behind tail, stored spring, magic seam, reconnection, zipper that opens neat doors. Result, protection that also organizes, turning incoming fuss into arranged pathways. Take a slow breath. In like filling a small sail. Out like letting it ease. You live under a shield so effective that it turns potential trouble into choreography, bows, slides, zips, and gentle returns, until the only part your eyes notice is the soft light at the ends of the world. When you're ready, we'll visit those doors more closely and watch how opening them sends travelers down the tracks. For now, let the wind chime image settle, quiet most of the time, singing only when the breeze and the threads agree. Here's the gentle answer to the question we've been circling. How do the visitors get inside the shield at all? Through a quiet trick called magnetic reconnection. Think of two zippers meeting. For a moment, their teeth line up, and then they swap partners. A new opening appears where there wasn't one before. Energy and travelers slip through, not with a bang, but with a neat, tidy click. Start on the sun-facing side of the bubble. The solar wind arrives carrying the sun's magnetic threads. Earth's shield carries its own threads. Most of the time, these two sets that slide past each other politely. But when the sun's threads lean the right way, friendly and opposite to Earth's at the meeting place, the zippers engage. The boundary opens narrow doors along the skin of the bubble. This is reconnection on the day side. What does open mean here? A field line that once belonged only to Earth now links to the outside flow. It becomes an open line with one end at Earth and the other tied to the solar wind. The wind grabs that open line like a child taking a kite string and pulls it over the top of the planet, across the polar cap, and toward the long night side tail. Picture a steady hand drawing a ribbon from noon over the pole into midnight. That is the first half of a simple, beautiful loop called the Dungy cycle. The Dungy cycle, is said softly, is just this. Lines open on the day side, get dragged across the pole, and later, far back in the tail, they snap closed again. Open, drag, close, return. A breathing motion for the shield. You don't need more than those 4 words to carry the idea. While the dayside doors are open, energy also crosses the boundary. It is as if the sun hands the shield a small battery pack. Hold this. Some of that energy goes right into motion along the top of the atmosphere, steering a slow flow from dayside toward nightside. Some of it is stored in the stretched lines of the tail, like tension in a bow. There's a second effect. As the open lines are pulled over the pole, plasma in the high atmosphere, the thin conductive air at the edge of space, begins to glide with them. The motion sets up gentle electric fields, which in turn guide more motion. Think of a smooth conveyor belt starting to move. Everything atop it drifts in the same calm direction, day to night, noon to midnight, across the polar cap. It's unrushed, but sure. During steady reconnection, on the day side, this conveyor keeps running. New lines open, old ones are pulled back. The polar cap becomes a kind of rooftop patio where the open lines pass over on their way to the tail. If you could see the magnetic map instead of the stars, you'd notice the open region growing or shrinking as the door opens wider or closes down again. No drama, just slow changes in the size of the patio. Now a micro summary to rest your mind. On the day side, When the sun's threads line up just so with Earth's, zippers open along the boundary. Earth's field lines connect to the solar wind and become open. The wind pulls those lines across the polar cap and into the nightside tail, carrying energy along. Open, drag, half the cycle. Let's stay here for a few breaths and keep the terms kind. Reconnection is not tearing, it's retying. Imagine two pieces of string touching and then exchanging ends so that new strings are formed. Energy moves along the new paths, like water through newly opened channels. The shield, far from failing, is doing good work, rearranging its own threads to keep the system balanced. You might ask, how often does this happen? Often in small ways. The sun's magnetic direction changes as the wind swirls and turns. When it turns into a friendly angle, the dayside zipper gets busy. When it turns away, the zipper idles. Doors open, then rest, then open again. The shield responds within minutes to hours, depending on the flavor of the wind. To you on the ground, this feels like a series of gentle invitations. Sometimes the invitation is brief, sometimes it lingers. Another tiny rule worth keeping: every open line is a promise. If it opens on the dayside and is hauled into the tail, it will eventually find a partner and snap closed again. That closing will launch energy back toward Earth along the field lines. That is the second half of the cycle and the spark for much of the Aurora's brightness. We will visit that closing in the next part. For now, let the promise sit. Open now means close later. A small, cozy myth check can help here. People sometimes picture the shield as either up or down, like a drawbridge. Reconnection asks you to imagine something subtler. There is no one switch. There are many tiny gates along a breathing boundary, opening and shutting in patches as the sun's threads drift past. The overall effect is smooth, a steady handoff of energy and a steady flow of open lines toward the tail. If you like pocket phrases, keep these. Zippers meet and swap. That's reconnection. Open lines are kites. The solar wind pulls them over the pole. Energy rides the ribbon. Some is stored in the tail. Some moves the rooftop flow. Open now, close later. That's the promise of the cycle. Take a slow breath. Imagine quiet doors along the dayside skin, one after another ease and open, letting a measured number of travelers and a measured amount of energy cross the threshold. No rush, no crowding. Just the bubble doing its thoughtful job, organizing chaos into pathways. One more gentle recap before we pause. The dayside is where the meeting happens first. Friendly alignment lets zippers engage. Lines that were closed become open and are pulled over the pole toward the night side. Energy is transferred and stored. Everything remains calm. The stage is set for the tail to keep the promise and send the favor back. Now follow the open lines into the night side tail, where the promise is kept. Far behind the planet, those stretched magnetic threads have been pulled thin. They're under quiet tension, like a bow drawn and held. When conditions ripen, the tail makes its own zipper. Lines that had been open meet partners and snap closed. That snap does two things at once. It sends newly closed loops racing back toward Earth along the magnetic tracks, and it pinches off a detached bundle that drifts farther down the tail. One part returns the favor, one part floats away. As the closed loops spring inward, they tug charged particles with them and launch ripples along the field lines. Think of a plucked string sending a traveling pulse. Those pulses run toward the poles, guiding packets of energy down into the upper atmosphere. Along the way, the particles gain a little speed, like runners encouraged by a tailwind. When they meet the thin air, the familiar exchange happens. A tap, a moment of holding, a soft release as light. This is the second half of the same simple loop. Day side, open and drag. Night side, close and return. The Dungy cycle completes a circle you can almost feel. Day to night to day again. The closing in the tail also reorganizes the large-scale flow inside the bubble. Currents strengthen along the magnetic paths into the polar regions and sweep sideways around them. The upper atmosphere, conducting like a thin wire mesh, hosts these currents for a while, then lets them ease as the system calms. Not every closure is a grand gesture. Sometimes the tail zips in small patches, here and there, a series of tidy stitches. Each stitch sends a modest pulse down a set of field lines. Each pulse can brighten a segment of the auroral oval or nudge a faint arc into motion. Other times, many stitches happen in quick sequence. Energy that was patiently stored is released more quickly, and wide portions of the oval wake up together. The feeling on the ground is a slow surge, not a shock. Light intensifies, shapes form and drift, and then the glow subsides into a quieter state. It helps to keep the rolls simple. Reconnection creates paths. Paths guide travelers. Travelers share energy. Air answers with color. The details of how much, how fast, and exactly where can all vary, but they ride on that dependable spine. Even the off and on rhythm fits. The sun's magnetic threads rotate and wander. Alignments strengthen, then weaken. Dayside zippers get busy, then rest. Tail zippers answer, then relax. The whole system breathes. There are friendly consequences of this breathing that complete the picture. When the tail closes lines and sends loops inward, it also drives a return flow across the top of the atmosphere, from the night side back toward the day side. Imagine a lazy river that carried open lines over the pole. After the closing, a countercurrent carries closed lines back around. The circulation keeps the bubble tidy. It prevents any one region from filling up with too much stored spring. It also means the auroral ovals can shift and reshape, following the gentle traffic pattern above. A few small handles make this less abstract. Dayside reconnection opens field lines and transfers energy in. Polar cap transport drags those open lines over the top toward night. Tail reconnection closes them and launches energy back along the tracks. Field-aligned currents bring the energy down to the upper air, where atoms and molecules glow. Return flows complete the loop toward the day side. None of this requires you to juggle numbers. The pictures do the lifting, zippers at the front and in the tail, ribbons drawn over the pole and snapping home, a quiet conveyor across the top and a return path underneath. All of it slow enough for bedtime, steady enough to feel safe. You may hear the word substorm in other tellings. Keep it gentle. It's just the name many give to one of these tail releases. Growth while energy is stored, expansion as the tail closes lines and sends them home, and recovery as the system settles. The label isn't required here. The feeling already lives in the loop you know. A tiny myth check helps keep the heart calm. Reconnection isn't a tear in the shield. It's an orderly retie that allows energy to be managed. The bubble is not failing when doors open. It's doing skilled traffic control. The brightness in the polar sky is evidence of that management, not a sign that the gate was left unattended. What about where exactly the light appears? The returning loops tend to aim for the auroral ovals around each pole, the comfortable paths where field lines plunge into the atmosphere. The ovals can widen when the dayside zipper opens wide for a while, or when the tail closure is vigorous. They can narrow again as the system relaxes. Within the ovals, arcs can form where a particular set of field lines receives more guided energy, and those arcs can drift as the flow changes. The choreography is delicate, but it all follows the rails you've met. Pocket summary to keep. Reconnection on the day side opens doors and passes energy inward. Open lines are drawn into the tail, storing tension. Reconnection in the tail closes lines and releases energy toward Earth. Ripples down the tracks guide particles to the upper air, where light appears. Circulation carries the system back toward balance, ready for the next quiet round. If any label has already floated away, you still have what matters. Doors can open, paths can guide, the tail can store and release, the sky can glow. That is enough to watch a display with understanding and without strain. One last gentle reassurance: the whole dance runs under a strong roof. The bubble is protective first, expressive second. The light you see is the safe, beautiful surface of a system turning incoming fuss into order and then into art. If there's room for a smile, remember the simple joke. Earth's shield is a practical hat, firm brim by day, windsock by night, and reconnection is the neat little clasp that lets it adjust to the breeze. Micro summary to close the door behind us. Reconnection creates paths. The tail stores spring and then lets it go. Pulses run down magnetic tracks. The polar sky replies in color. With that, the entryways are no longer a mystery, just quiet gates that open and close on time. Start with a shape you can hold in your mind. Earth makes invisible strands that loop out of the planet, curve through space, and dive back in. They rise near one pole, arc far above us, and return near the other pole. Imagine a giant hairdo with neat strands that leave and re-enter at the ends. Those strands are magnetic field lines. They are not just decorations. They are roots. Tiny charged travelers prefer roots. They are magnet-aware, so they drift and spiral along these strands the way beads roll inside a groove. If a traveler is near a strand, the strand becomes a guide. The motion wraps around the line, slides along it, and heads for wherever that line meets the atmosphere. That meeting happens near the poles. So the journey has a natural destination. Think of a kitchen juicer with two funnels, one at each end. Pour anywhere on the top, and the liquid finds a path to the funnels. It is not because the ends are colder. It is because the shape directs the flow into those two exits. Earth's field lines create a similar shape in space. The lines bend down into the upper air near the poles, so that is where the flow meets the sky. Not because temperature, but because tracks. Where those lines connect to the air, a wide ring forms around each pole. That ring is the auroral oval. It is not a thin circle drawn with a pen. It is a band, a comfortable belt, where many field lines enter the atmosphere. When travelers ride the lines inward, they arrive in this band. The result is a ring of potential porch lights, any of which can flicker when a packet of energy comes down the track. There are two ovals, one around the North Pole and one around the South Pole. They are like matching scarves on a globe. Often they mirror each other's mood. When the day side doors open and the tail stores and releases energy, both scarves can glow with similar timing. Not perfectly, because the winds push and the planet's tilt create differences, but close enough that you can think of them as siblings. What happens in one usually whispers in the other. A calm rule lives here. Field lines are like train tracks. Tracks decide where trains can go. The poles are train stations. If a traveler boards, the station will be at the end of a line, not halfway along a wall. This rule explains a lot of what your eyes see. Bands across the far north, bands across the far south. Quiet at the equator most nights, because the tracks there stay high and don't dive into the air as often. Hold a simple micro summary. The poles glow because that is where the magnetic doors open and the tracks meet the air. The ovals are the welcoming platforms. The ovals are not fixed. They breathe. On calm days, the rings are smaller and sit closer to the poles. On livelier days, when the dayside zipper opens wide and the tail stores more spring, the rings grow and shift. They can swell toward lower latitudes. They can shift their centers slightly. You do not need exact degrees or maps. You only need the feeling that the scarves loosen and tighten with the wind's mood. There is a second reason the ovals sit where they do. Above the atmosphere lies a thin conducting layer. It lets electric currents flow sideways around the polar cap. Those currents prefer to run along the edge of the oval. The edge marks the boundary between lines that are connected to space and lines that loop back to Earth. The system likes tidy borders. Currents hug those borders, and light often hugs them too. It helps to tuck away a gentle correction. People sometimes ask why the lights do not form bright spots right at the geographic poles. The answer rests in the tracks. The lines that thread the polar cap connect to the distant tail and the dayside doors. The strongest traffic and the busiest returns tend to skirt the cap's edge, not the very center. That edge is the oval, so the brightest arcs circle the pole rather than sitting on top of it. If the image of tracks feels too rigid, soften it. Field lines are not rails you could grasp. They are directions in space that charged travelers find hard to ignore. The motion along them has a graceful spiral. The approach to the atmosphere is not a plunge, but a guided glide. When the travelers meet oxygen and nitrogen high above you, the glow appears along the oval like lamps along a ring road. Pocket rules you can carry. Lines leave and re-enter near the poles. Travelers prefer to move along lines. Where lines meet the air, a ring forms, the auroral oval. Two ovals exist, north and south, often in step. The oval breathes with the sun's mood. Take a slow breath. Let the shape settle. Strands arcing out and back, funnels at the ends, a pair of rings where roots meet sky. The mind likes neat maps. This is one of the neatest it will find in space, orderly, forgiving, and kind. We will soon let the ovals move and stretch with a change in the wind and with the rhythm of local night. For now, keep the simplest truth close. Tracks decide destinations. The poles are where the tracks come home. That is why porch lights flip on there first, and why scarves of light circle those ends of the world. Let's watch the rings move. The auroral ovals aren't painted on, they're elastic. On quiet days, the rings sit close to the poles, like scarves snug to a collar. When the solar wind grows livelier and the bubble opens more doors, the rings loosen and slide equatorward like an elastic waistband letting out a notch. More field lines join the action, so the welcoming platform becomes wider. That's why people at mid-latitudes sometimes get a surprise show. The rings simply stretched far enough to include their sky. Think of shorelines. When the tide is low, a neat strip of wet sand hugs the water. When the tide rises, the wet strip climbs the beach. The auroral oval is a magnetic tide line. Space weather pulls it outward. Calm lets it settle back. You don't need numbers to feel this. Tight scarf, loose scarf, that's the whole idea. The ring also slides around with the day-night pattern. Auroras love darkness because your eyes do. Even if energy is flowing, daylight can wash the glow from view. That's why many displays favor local night. They often grow lively in the hours bracketing magnetic midnight, a time that isn't always the same as clock midnight. Magnetic midnight is simply when your location sits downstream in the magnetic sense, lined up with the long tail behind Earth. Don't memorize it. Just keep the cozy note that the best window often drifts a little left or right of the one on your watch. The ovals are twins with independent moods. Usually, north and south answer the same melody because the same field lines connect both hemispheres. A pulse down a line toward the north also points toward a partner footprint in the south. That's why photographs from space show matching crowns of light. But twins don't always blink at exactly the same moment. The planet's tilt, the angle of the solar wind's threads, and small differences in geography can make one ring speak a beat ahead of the other. Close enough to be siblings, different enough to feel alive. Inside each ring, the shapes you notice, arcs, folds, rays, trace the local traffic on the tracks. Where a particular bundle of lines carries more guided energy, an arc brightens there. As the flow changes, the arc drifts around the ring road, sometimes breaking into pieces, sometimes merging with neighbors. The ring is a highway interchange. On-ramps and off-ramps move as signals change, but the road itself stays put. When the solar wind really turns up, extra confetti, threads at a friendly angle, the oval can expand far from home. People far south or far north for the southern oval step outside and see a pale band they've never noticed before. If the ring stretches still more, the band becomes a curtain, then develops structure, a quiet green with hints of red, maybe a purple hem near the bottom. Cameras get excited first. Sensors in the dark are like cats near a pantry. They catch everything. Your eyes may need a few minutes to adapt. Give them time. The ring will do its part if the tracks are busy. It's worth placing one more gentle boundary in your mind. Inside the oval, many field lines are open to space. Outside, more are closed back to Earth. The edge, the border between open and closed, is a favorite path for currents and often for light. That's why you see arcs roam along the rim. It's the seam of the scarf, neat and strong, where stitching shows. Because the ovals breathe, predictions come as ranges, not guarantees. Think of weather. Chance of rain, likely in the afternoon, for auroras. Chance of glow, likely near the oval, best after dark. If your sky is clear, your view is wide, and the ring is stretching, you have a friendly shot. If clouds gather or city lights flood the scene, even a generous ring might whisper instead of sing. None of that changes the rule. Tracks decide destinations. The ring marks where tracks meet air. A tiny myth check helps here. People sometimes think the equator is too far because heat cancels the lights. Temperature doesn't decide this. Geometry does. The tracks in the middle latitudes usually arch high and don't dip into the glowing layers of air. During strong events, as when the ring expands, some of those mid-latitude tracks finally meet the right heights. That's when farther south viewers catch a glimpse, not because cold, but because the scarf loosened. Another gentle note, the oval's motion is gradual. It doesn't leap like a startled cat. It swells over tens of minutes, then rests, then retreats. If you're watching, use the rhythm of a kettle coming to the boil. Quiet, a little activity at the edges, more steam than a steady simmer. The ring will show you its mood if you give it time. Pocket handles to keep. Elastic ring, tight on quiet nights, wide on lively ones. Darkness helps. Your eyes prefer local night. Magnetic midnight is a friendly window. Twin scarves. North and south usually echo each other with tiny delays. Edge matters. Borders between open and closed lines host busy light. Geometry rules. Tracks dipping into air set the stage. Temperature does not. If you ever find yourself under a stretching ring, test the simple trick of patience. Let your eyes settle. Look away from screens. Trace the band's position against a familiar star. Check again 5 minutes later. Has it moved? Grown? Split? You're watching the map breathe. Micro summary to close. Field lines are train tracks. The poles are stations. The auroral ovals are the ring roads where those tracks touch sky. The rings tighten and loosen with the sun's mood, favor local night, and often glow together north and south. When they widen, more of us live under the porch lights. Take a slow breath. Picture a globe wearing two glowing scarves, loosened slightly by a friendly breeze. The fabric lifts, settles, and lifts again. That's the geometry of wonder doing its quiet work. Hold a simple rule at the front of your mind. When a fast visitor taps an atom or a molecule, it leaves a tiny gift of energy. The atom or molecule holds that gift for a moment, like keeping a note between pages, then gives it back as light. That's all an aurora is, countless tiny thank you notes shining at once. Start with oxygen, because it paints the most familiar scene. Think of the sky as a tall apartment building. On one floor in the middle heights, oxygen turns on a calm emerald lamp. On a higher floor, where the air is thinner and quieter, oxygen can switch on a softer red lamp, like the glow from a faraway porch. Same resident, different rooms, different colors. Why two rooms for one resident? Because the way oxygen holds energy can change with quiet. In thin air, there are fewer bumps from neighbors. Oxygen can keep the gift a little longer before letting it go as light. That long, unhurried hold favors a deep red glow. Lower down, there are more bumps, more chance for the gift to be jostled away as plain motion and warmth instead of light. So oxygen chooses the quicker, green reply there. You don't need the technical term. Holds longer up high, speaks red, holds briefly mid-sky, speaks green will do. Now meet nitrogen, often traveling in pairs as a little molecule. Nitrogen doesn't usually paint the middle of the curtain. It loves the edges. Down low, where the curtain brushes the thicker air, nitrogen adds purples and pinks. Imagine a seamstress sewing a lavender hem along the bottom. That trim is nitrogen's handwriting, strong when bumps are frequent and energy is passed around quickly. You might be wondering why too many bumps dim the show. Picture walking down a hallway with a cup of water filled to the brim. If the hall is empty, you can carry the cup steadily and pour it into a plant, a clear, useful ending. If the hall is crowded, shoulders brush, the water sloshes, and most of it spills before you reach the pot. That spill is like quenching. Collisions in denser air steal the gift before it can emerge as light. Up high, the hall is clear. A calm pour becomes a visible glow. Let's set the main colors in an easy tray you can carry. Oxygen's green, common, friendly. Many displays wear it like a meadow. Oxygen's red, higher, calmer, a soft wine-colored fringe when the air is extra quiet. Nitrogen's purple and pink, lower edges, bright hems when the curtain brushes thicker air. No numbers needed. Lower, middle, higher is enough. All this begins with a tap. A tiny visitor, often an electron guided down a magnetic line, bumps an atom or molecule and shares a pinch of energy. The atom or molecule's electrons shuffle into a more excited arrangement for a moment. When they relax back, they hand that pinch out as a color your eyes can see. Different species, different shuffles, different colors. It's like pressing different piano keys. One touch, different notes. Why does oxygen rule the green middle? Because there's a sweet spot where the air is thin enough to let the glow survive, but thick enough that plenty of visitors arrive to do the tapping. Oxygen happens to have a strong green note there. Our eyes, in the dim, favor green too, which makes that note feel vivid at night. You can tuck this away as a kind, practical reason. The world and your eyes meet happily in that color. Why do some nights show a red top shelf? That's the high room, where oxygen keeps the gift longer. Few interruptions, plenty of patience, and the slow release you see is red. If the night is very calm up there and the visitors are steady, The red can spread like a quiet roof over the green. Nitrogen's edgework often shows up when the curtain reaches lower. More bumps happen, energy moves differently, and nitrogen's violet family of notes grows stronger. Cameras are especially good at catching that trim. Your eyes, which lean toward green in the dark, might only notice a pink hint. If you do see the purple hem by eye, it often means the curtain dipped quite low and the visitors were lively. Let's braid in a gentle idea about time. Not all glows switch on and off at the same speed. Some oxygen notes take a slow breath before they release their color, especially in that thin high room. That's why red can look smooth and lingering, like a candle behind frosted glass. The quicker green notes twinkle more, responding to the changing tap, tap, tap of incoming visitors. Nitrogen's hem, busy with collisions, can flicker rapidly at the edge of your vision. Same dance floor, different tempos. If a term tries to sneak in, metastable, the fancier way to say, holds energy a bit longer. You can smile and let it pass. Lingering glow up high, quick glow mid-sky is all you need. The brain likes pictures. The sky supplies them. Another small handle. Colors often stack like a layered cake. High red, middle green, lower purple. The layers shift with the night's mood. On very calm, high-room nights, you may see mostly red, as if the cake top is all frosting. On many nights, you'll see a generous green band with hints of red above and purple below. On lively nights, when the curtain dips, the purple hem brightens, and the green can look textured, full of folds and rays. A cozy myth check helps reduce strain. The colors aren't painted onto air the way light bulbs are colored glass. The colors are the air's own notes, what oxygen and nitrogen prefer to sing when they receive just the right nudge in just the right room. Change the room, change the note, that's all. Pocket micro summary for this half. A tap leaves a gift of energy. Oxygen answers green in the middle, red up high. Nitrogen adds purple and pink along the lower edge. Too many bumps can quench a glow. Fewer bumps let it linger. Layers form because different heights favor different notes. Take a slow breath. Picture a quilt spread across the night. Green blocks in the middle, red trim along the top, lavender stitching at the bottom. You don't have to remember the names if you keep the feeling. Oxygen paints the meadow and the wine red edge. Nitrogen sews the hem. The rest is just which room the music chooses tonight. Let's cozy into why colors change from place to place and moment to moment. The visitors that start this whole exchange don't all carry the same pep. Some arrive with modest energy and slow down high above, where the air is thin and polite. Those tend to nudge oxygen into that lingering red room, unhurried, smooth, like a nightlight left on in a hallway. Others come in perkier, make it deeper before tiring, and favor the middle floors, where oxygen's green note sings easily. The liveliest visitors can reach even lower edges and wake nitrogen's purples and pinks. Same building, different elevators, different doors. Now picture the glow through time. At the beginning of a lively spell, you might notice a green band strengthening, as if someone slowly turns up a dimmer. If the upper air is quiet, a red canopy may spread above it, a faint roof that thickens as the minutes pass. When the curtain dips low, the bottom edge can pick up that violet trim from nitrogen, especially where folds hang nearest the ground. As the rush eases, the green softens, the purple fades, and the red roof lingers a little longer, unwilling to leave the party. That's the holds longer up high idea, arriving as a feeling, not a term. Your eyes have their own preferences at night. They're better at noticing green and motion than red and purple in the dark. Cameras are less shy. They gather light patiently and see the reds and violets more easily. So don't worry if a photo shows colors you only half saw. Your eyes aren't failing you. They're simply tuned for moonlit grass more than for wine-colored ceilings and lavender hems. Another gentle piece of the puzzle is the company each color keeps. In the green middle, oxygen's note often arrives as smooth sheets and long arcs. Along the lower edge, where nitrogen's purples appear, the curtain can show fine fringes and quick flickers. Up high, the red is usually broad and calm, like a soft whisper. If you're tracing a display, try reading it from bottom to top, flicker and fringe at the hem, textured green in the middle, quiet red near the top. It's a story written in layers. Let's give quenching one more comfortable chair, because it explains why a bright bottom edge can vanish as quickly as it came. In thicker air, bumps are frequent. If an oxygen atom catches a gift of energy but gets jostled too soon, it spends the gift as motion, heat, rather than light. It's like trying to carry a mug of tea through a crowded kitchen. One elbow, and the tea is no longer in the mug. Nitrogen, however, has a set of quick replies that work well in that busy hallway, so you see its pinks and purples even when the oxygen green gets a little shy down low. A small smile can help these ideas settle. Oxygen is the friend who likes a quiet room to tell a longer story, red, and a busier room to tell a quick one, green. Nitrogen is the neighbor who thrives in the hallway during a party, purple trim, chatting at the edges where everyone passes by. The shape of the curtain plays along, too. Those vertical streaks you sometimes notice, thin pillars within the broader sheet, are the glow lining up along the magnetic tracks themselves. Each ray is like one staircase in the apartment, lit up because visitors are arriving along that specific set of steps. Where many staircases are lit together, the sheet looks smooth. Where only a few are especially busy, you see stripes, breathing point here, in like unfolding a soft blanket, out like smoothing it over your knees. You might hear that color can change with the season or the place. That's just the same rules wearing different coats. In long winter nights, there's more darkness to notice a lingering red roof. In regions where the oval dips lower, you may catch more purple hems, growth. The day's side doors have been opening. Open lines are being drawn into the tail. The long bow is being pulled. Inside the bubble, large-scale flows nudge the polar cap gently from day toward night. Over your head, you might notice a steady, quiet band of green anchored to the oval's edge, with little change besides slow brightening. No fireworks, just setup. Energy is being saved, like air filling a bellows. During this growth beat, the strings become more ready to sing. The along the strings currents strengthen in their appointed lanes. The sideways electrojets sharpen around the oval's rim. Think of a stage crew smoothing a curtain and checking the lights while the audience whispers. From the ground, patience is rewarded by a sense that the sky is holding its breath. Expansion. The moment arrives when the tail keeps its promise. Lines in the far night side reconnect. Tension is released. Loops spring inward. A front of change races toward the planet along the magnetic strings, a traveling now that reaches the oval and spreads across it. The along the strings currents surge, guiding more energetic particles down into the upper air. The electrojets speed up around the ring road. The quiet band of green brightens quickly and may suddenly break into arcs that march poleward or ripple sideways like silk, finding a breeze. This is the pluck on the sky harp. The wave itself is invisible, but the response is not. Arcs thicken, then split. Dark lanes, places where fewer particles are arriving, thread between brighter folds. Rays stand up like transparent piano wires, each one marking a favored magnetic staircase. Overhead, a patch can open into a corona, a burst of rays seeming to converge toward a point high above, as if you were lying beneath a blooming umbrella. Your eyes will recognize the gesture, even if your words take their time. Underneath the display, the currents are doing careful work. The along the strings paths act like downspouts, bringing energy into the ionosphere in organized lanes. The sideways electrojets close the circuit around the polar cap, like two broad rivers flowing east and west along the oval's edge. The pattern is not random, it's a map. The dance you see is a tracing of the map's roots. A small domestic joke for your pocket. This is the sky adjusting its blanket. It tugs one corner, smooths a fold, gives the fabric a quick shake, and then lays it back down. The blanket doesn't fly off the bed, it just resettles with a prettier drape. That's the feel of expansion without alarm. Another breathing point. In as if you're agreeing with a lullaby. Out as if the lullaby agrees with you. The expansion beat can last minutes to tens of minutes. Within it, smaller waves ride on larger ones. A bright arc may surge, pause, and surge again, each push sent by a fresh packet of released tension in the tail. The electrojets answer in sync, sometimes carving little bays and bulges along the ring's edge, signatures that instruments can feel and you can watch as moving light. Hold a few easy handles. Magnetic strings carry waves from the tail toward the poles. Along the string's currents, bring energy down. Sideways jets sweep around the oval. Growth stores tension. Expansion releases it and brightens the sky. The dance is silent music. Pluck, travel, reply. We'll let the third beat, recovery, arrive in the next part, along with a gentle catalog of shapes and the way they follow the map. For now, keep the harp in mind. The sun provides the pluck, earth stretches the strings, and the air turns traveling notes into color you can stand under. Let's ease into the third beat, recovery. After the bright push of expansion, the system exhales. The tail has paid back much of the tension it saved. The along the strings currents soften, and the sideways electrojets slow toward their quieter pace. Up above, the green band settles. Arcs that marched poleward pause, then fade into a thinner ribbon along the oval's rim. The sky looks as if someone smoothed a comforter after a playful shake. Recovery isn't silence, it's a hush. Small waves still run along the magnetic strings, like ripples after a stone's splash. Here and there, a dim arc takes one more step. A thin ray stands and sits. A patch glows and eases. Instruments would write neat, shrinking wiggles. Your eyes red, calm returning. In time, the oval's edge resumes its patient glow. The porch light's on low, and the stage waits for the next invitation. Now that the rhythm is clear, growth, expansion, recovery, let's give the shapes a gentle tour and tie each to the map you're carrying. Arcs are the backbone. Picture them as bright lanes draped along the oval's edge, each lane marking a family of magnetic strings that are currently guiding more energetic travelers. When the tail sends a stronger wave, an arc can split into two, or a dim border can burst into a fresh arc a bit farther poleward. That step is the sky's way of saying the action has shifted to lines slightly closer to the tail. Arcs often look smooth, like ribbon candy. Their motion, sliding, stepping, bending, follows the flow in the ionosphere beneath. Pushed politely by electric fields the waves deliver, ripples ride on arcs, small scallops that move sideways. They reveal the tug-of-war between the along-the-strings currents that pour down and the sideways electrojets that must carry everything along the oval's rim. A ripple is a compromise. We'll share the path. When ripples pass through one another, they can make little diamonds of brightness at their crossings, then continue on, polite as glances in a hallway. Rays are the vertical stripes, pencil-thin to brush-wide, that reach from the base of an arc toward the zenith. Each ray is a column drawn along a specific set of strings. More travelers in that column, more light. Sometimes rays shimmer, turning on and off in sequence, as if the building's stairwells were being lit one at a time. That shimmer is a wave passing, an Alf Venn note stepping down the staircase. Patches are the floating islands that appear poleward of the main arcs, especially during certain wind flavors. They drift like sleepy boats, guided by the slow polar flows that the day-to-night conveyor sets up. A patch can brighten when a small wave packet reaches it, then dim as the packet moves on. If you track a patch for several minutes, you'll see it obey the map rather than wander randomly. Coronas arrive when the geometry cooperates and the dance is overhead. Rays seem to fan out from a point high above, like spokes from a hub or ribs from the crown of an umbrella. It's an illusion of perspective. You are looking up along many radiant columns at once. The effect is a gasp, even for seasoned watchers, not because it's loud, but because it places you under the instrument, inside the song. The currents beneath all these shapes are the quiet workers. Along the strings, the Birkeland currents bring energy down and lift it back up, closing circuits through the ionosphere. Around the oval, the electrojets sweep east and west, closing the side doors. During expansion, those jets speed and sometimes meander, carving bays that magnetometers record and that your eyes interpret as sudden bends in arcs. During recovery, they relax. If you could translate their motion into sound, it would be the difference between a brisk waltz and a slow sway. The dance is soundless to you because the medium is thin and the action lives in electricity and magnetism. But you can think of the Alf Venn waves as the score, the Birkeland currents as the performer's steps, the electrojets as the chorus moving around the stage, and the auroral forms as the costumes catching the light. The sun writes the key, earth tunes the instrument, and the air provides the glowing notes. A tiny domestic joke to keep the shoulders loose. During recovery, it's as if the sky checks whether the blanket's corners are square, tucks one side, tugs the other, and pats the middle. Satisfied, it nods and leaves the room. The blanket doesn't argue. If you like pocket rules, gather these. Strings carry notes. Waves launched in the tail slide along magnetic field lines toward the poles. Notes summon steps. Along the string's currents, in sideways electrojets form a circuit in the upper air. Steps write shapes. Arcs, ripples, rays, patches, and coronas trace where energy travels. The dance breathes. Growth stores tension, expansion releases it, recovery restores quiet. Silence is part of the music. No thunder is needed. Electricity and magnetism do the talking. A gentle myth check. Motion in the aurora doesn't mean the wind at your location is gusting or that weather at the ground has flipped. The mover is above weather, running on magnetism, not air. The only breeze you might feel is the one the night gives you. The real breeze is the sun's, far away, and the waves are the answers written on Earth's strings. One more breathing point. In, like learning the chorus to a song you already love. Out, like humming it under your breath. Sometimes, after expansion, the sky gives a small encore, a secondary surge, shorter and narrower, as another packet of tail tension is released. The arcs brighten briefly and then fade. It's the last verse, not a new song. Then the oval returns to its calm perimeter glow. If you stayed long enough, you might notice the stars seem sharper again as your eyes shift back from watching the green to reading the night. Before we close, tie motion to color one last time. When the currents surge, the middle floors brighten. The green bands fatten, fold, and stride. The high red roof can appear as a gentle dome during the peak, then linger into recovery. At the hem, the purple trim flickers quickest when the curtain dips, then dims first as the curtain lifts. Motion and color are partners. Where the map guides more travelers, the chosen notes sing louder. Micro summary to carry forward. The sky dances when stored energy in the tail is released as waves along magnetic strings. Those waves set up currents that pour down the strings and sweep around the oval. The currents guide particles that tap the air. The air answers with ripples of light, arcs, rays, patches, coronas, through a calm cycle of growth, expansion, and recovery. No thunder, just silent music written in magnetism. Take a slow breath. Picture green silk moving in a gentle draft, a red canopy breathing above it, and a fine violet hem brushing the lower edge. The instrument rests for now, still strung, still tuned, ready for the next quiet pluck. Evidence can be soft and friendly. It doesn't have to shout. It can arrive like a memory shared over tea, plain, surprising, and easy to hold. Let's start with one like that. In the late 1800s, during a particularly lively visit from the sun, telegraph operators noticed something odd. Their long wires, stretched across fields and towns, began to carry current with the batteries switched off. Imagine sitting at a wooden desk, the key resting under your fingers, and the needle on the instrument starts to twitch anyway. Messages were sent with no local power, as if the sky itself had become the battery and the earth the gentle return path. Operators reported sparks at the contacts, paper tape creeping along, clicks and ticks in patterns that weren't supposed to be there. Not danger in our bedtime version, just amazement. The air above had been tapped. Energy rode Earth's magnetic strings. Currents found the wires. The instruments answered. Why does this story matter? Because it connects the glow we watch to a measurable nudge, electricity moving where it usually doesn't. The lights in the sky and the currents in the wires are parts of the same calm choreography. When the tail releases stored spring and waves travel down the magnetic strings, those waves set up electric fields in the upper air. Currents pour along the strings, sweep around the polar cap, and some of that changing condition tickles long conductors on the ground. Telegraph lines, railroad tracks, even pipelines can feel it. On that old night, the world briefly ran a tiny experiment with its every wire. The Aurora said, "Hello," and the network replied, "We hear you." Hold that thread and add a second. Instruments listening to Earth's magnetic mood show wiggles that match the dance overhead. A simple magnetometer is like a calm compass that writes down where the magnetic needle wants to point, moment by moment. During quiet times, its trace is steady, a slow wave with the day. When a substorm begins, the trace shifts. It dips or swings as the electrojets speed along the auroral oval and the along the strings currents strengthen. You can think of it as the planet's pulse, quickening a little while the lights brighten, then easing back as recovery arrives. No equations needed, just a line that moves when the sky moves. People began keeping those traces long ago. Early polar researchers bundled themselves against the cold, set up magnetometers in huts near the Arctic circles, and watched needles respond as green arches flowed outside. They didn't have our full map yet, but the pattern whispered the same story. When the aurora glowed, the magnetic field near the ground behaved as if distant, organized currents were sliding through the sky. The lights weren't imagination. They had a footprint in measurements that any careful hand could repeat. Now the baby photos. Before digital sensors, photographers used long exposures to collect enough light from the night. Those minutes-long exposures turned faint auroral arcs into graceful bands on film. Even when the eye could barely see a glow, the camera revealed the oval's edge, the split of an arc, the faint red roof above a greener middle. These pictures are tender because they look like first steps, the sky trying on its shapes while people learned how to catch them. If you've ever seen a pale, grainy image of an arc drawn like a quiet smile across a northern horizon, you've held one of those baby photos. They're proof that patience reveals structure. The ring isn't a rumor, it's a place that light prefers to live. As instruments improved, the pictures grew clearer, but the story stayed kind. Networks of magnetometers around the world began to agree. When the oval brightens, their traces sway together, east and west, like rivers answering the same rain. Radios listening to the upper air noticed that signals bend differently during active nights. It was as if the sky's invisible wires were being tuned. None of this asks you to memorize terms. It's only a set of nods from many directions saying, yes, the glow is connected to currents, and the currents follow the magnetic map you've been carrying. Even simple, sturdy devices on the ground can hear the dance. An all-sky camera, sitting in the cold with a fisheye lens, watches the entire dome at once. It records the oval's edge, the sudden birth of an arc, the marching steps during expansion, and the long exhale of recovery. Played back quickly, those hours look like someone adjusting a blanket. Tug, smooth, shake, lay flat. The instruments don't feel wonder, but they faithfully mark the motions that make wonder for us. Pocket summary for this half. Old wires twitched when the sky grew busy. Careful needles traced the mood of the magnetic field. Patient cameras caught the ring and its shapes even when eyes saw only hints. From huts in the snow to desks in warm labs, people found the same answer. The aurora is real, and its story is electrical and magnetic, written in a script the planet itself helps us read. Take a slow breath. Let the image settle. Gentle currents above, gentle traces below, and a shared quiet nod between sky and instruments. In the next part, we'll lift our gaze higher and let the view from space add its own baby photos. Rings and ribbons, seen from above, city light bright against night ocean dark, so the map closes its loop from ground to orbit and back again. Now, lift your gaze above the clouds. From orbit, the story becomes wonderfully simple. Astronauts, looking down through the station windows, see two luminous crowns around the poles, broad rings with moving ribbons, bright as city grids against ocean dark. The rings don't sit still. They swell, thin, and ripple. When the tail releases its spring, whole sections brighten together, as if someone traced a glowing highlighter around the planet's cap. The view answers our ground map in one glance. Yes, it's a pair of scarves. Yes, they circle the poles. And yes, they breathe. Satellites add the next layer, the kind you can trust even with your eyes closed. Some fly high, far from the air, and feel small tugs in the magnetic field as the electrojets sweep around the oval. To a satellite's magnetometer, a lively night feels like a gentle hand on the shoulder, first pushing east, then easing, then pushing west, as currents close their loops. Other spacecraft skim lower, dipping through the tops of the curtains. They count the arriving travelers, those tiny charged visitors riding down the strings, and they note when energies rise or fall. A bump in those counts pairs with bright arcs below, the way a beat pairs with a dance step. Even the quiet, patient satellites that watch the sun confirm the pattern. They sit upstream and sample the solar wind, its speed, its density, and the direction of its magnetic threads. When the threads turn to the friendly angle, we see the dayside zipper wake up. An hour later, roughly, the ground and sky agree. Traces swing, rings brighten. No need for exact minutes in a bedtime story, only the comfort of cause and effect arriving in order. There is a gentle magic in seeing both hemispheres at once. Constellations of satellites stitch together views from north and south, and the two rings often brighten in step. It's called conjugacy, but you can keep paired glow. A pulse down a magnetic string has 2 feet, one in each hemisphere, and both usually answer. The answers aren't identical. Tilt, geography, and thread angles give each crown a personality, but they're close enough to nod across the planet. I feel it too. Ships at sea, far from street lamps, have logged the same nod. Sailors wrote about curtains moving over black water, and compasses acting a little restless while the glow grew and softened. On land, people in farm fields, on city rooftops, and along snowy roads have added quiet notes to the record for centuries. Green band low in the north, red roof faint, arcs marching. You can plot these small human lines on a big planet map and watch the oval's edge reveal itself from countless gentle reports. Modern baby photos are just as dear as the old ones. All sky cameras keep watch in clear, cold air, making time-lapse films that show the classic 3-beat rhythm: growth, expansion, recovery, like a chest rising and falling in sleep. Wide satellites add their own time-lapse from above. Ovals widen during lively hours, contract again toward dawn, sometimes sending a glowing finger outward before drawing it back. The two views, upward and downward, fit like hands meeting. Ground networks close the loop. Lines of magnetometers from midnight to noon record how the electrojets speed along the oval when arcs brighten. Radio receivers notice how signals bend across the polar cap as charged layers shift. Even the gentle hiss and crackle of natural radio, space's own static, changes its texture as waves run along the strings. Each instrument is a different sense, and all 5 senses tell the same story. If you like keeping a single thread through many rooms, use this one. When the sun's breeze turns just right, the shield opens neat doors. Open lines are drawn into the tail. Stored spring is released. Waves run down the strings. Currents pour along and around the polar cap. Atoms and molecules glow, and everything, wires, needles, cameras, and eyes, agrees it happened. That's a chain you can lay out on a coffee table without spilling it. A tiny myth check to ease any worry. Strong evidence doesn't mean strong alarm. The same instruments that prove the connection also show how smoothly the system usually behaves. Most nights are whispers. Even on busier nights, experts watch the currents and take practical steps for the grown-up parts of the world. Satellites, power lines, roots in the far north, while you keep the permission to simply look up, learn, or sleep. Pocket summary to close. People have watched the lights from forests and ship decks, from observatories and kitchen doors, from mountaintops in orbit, needles on paper, wires in barns, cameras under stars, satellites above the clouds. They all point to the same calm pattern. The visitors come from the sun, the shield organizes, the tail releases, waves travel, currents flow, and thin air answers with color. The glow is not only beautiful, it is measured, mapped, and understood enough to rest your mind. Take a slow breath. Picture the earth wearing 2 soft crowns, their edges moving like quiet surf. Somewhere, an astronaut is watching them from above. Somewhere else, a magnetometer is drawing a small curve. Somewhere near you, the sky is patient, ready for its next lullaby of light. Think of space weather as the world's quietest forecast. No umbrellas needed, no sandbags at the door, just a gentle check on how lively the sun's breeze is and whether our planet's neat doors might open a little wider tonight. Start upstream, where watching begins. Scientists keep steady eyes on the sun. Sometimes it tosses extra confetti, brief flashes from active regions, flares, or larger handfuls that lift away like glowing bubbles, ejections. Most days, it's a tidy sprinkle. Now and then, it's a bit more. None of these words are homework. They're simply signals to look a little closer at the breeze that's coming our way. Between the sun and earth, quiet sentinels sit in the stream and take its temperature. How fast the particles are moving, how crowded the flow is, and which way the sun's magnetic threads are pointing. You already know why that last bit matters. When the threads turn to the friendly angle, the zipper on the day side is easier to open. A forecast can say, in soft terms, the breeze is up and the threads are in a helpful orientation. That's the space weather version of a good night for wind chimes. Because people like a single handle, there's a simple scale many glance at, KP. You can think of it as a fussiness meter for the planet's magnetic mood. Low means the rings near the poles are snug. Higher means the scarves may loosen and stretch toward lower latitudes. You don't need the ticks on the dial. All you need is the feeling. A climbing KP suggests a wider audience might step outside and see a faint band become a curtain. Forecasts weave several pieces together. If a confetti burst left the sun, they estimate when the bubble might arrive. If the upstream breeze is already livelier, they note it. If the threads aim the friendly way, they add a little confidence. From these hints comes a quiet sentence. Chances for aurora increase at high latitudes tonight. Viewers at mid-latitudes have a small window if skies are clear. It's as calm as light rain possible after sunset. No alarms. Just a nudge to keep the kettle handy and the horizon in view. Practical life hums along underneath. Satellites make tiny adjustments, like a careful driver leaving a little more room between cars. Engineers who look after long power lines watch their instruments and, if needed, change settings to share the load more evenly. Airlines planning routes near the far north sometimes choose a path with better radio comfort. These are grown-up chores, done by people who do them every day. They don't require your worry at bedtime. The whole point of monitoring is to keep the house quiet while you rest. For sky watchers, small tools make the forecast friendlier. Agencies post short alerts that say, in essence, the breeze is picking up, or the threads just turned helpful. Apps can turn those notes into a gentle buzz on your phone, not as a siren, but as a tap on the shoulder. If you want to step outside, the next hour looks promising. You can treat these like the smell of rain through a window, an invitation, not an order. If the sofa wins, the sky will forgive you. There will be other nights. Myth-busting helps keep the heart calm. Many have imagined that auroras sing aloud, and the stories are lovely. But for human ears, the real song is quiet, waves in magnetism, not air. What you see is a concert in light, choreographed by electricity. If someone swears they heard crackles, smile and let the tale pass. Your eyes are the right instruments for this show. Microphones, it's better off listening to the radio side of space. You might wonder how precise any of this can be. Forecasts are honest. They give probabilities, not promises. The breeze can change its mind mid-journey. The friendly angle can drift away and come back again. Cloud cover can make an excellent night invisible, and a clear sky can make a modest night feel special. The forecast is there to quiet the guesswork, not to replace wonder. Chances improve is already a gift. A pocket way to read the whole system. Upstream watchers see a burst or a livelier stream. Thread direction turns friendlier, and doors are more likely to open. KP climbs, meaning the scarves might loosen. Practical teams make small, practiced adjustments. You, if you like, step outside when darkness and clear skies agree. If you do step out, bring patience. Let your eyes adjust. Check the northern or southern horizon for a pale band and give it 10 unrushed minutes. If you have an alert set, treat it like a timer for a tea steeping. When it buzzes, look up. When it's quiet, live your evening. Either way, the instrument in the sky keeps its easy rhythm, whether we watch or not. Micro summary to tuck into your pocket. Space weather is weather in the calm sense. Watched, modeled, and handled. When the sun's breeze cooperates and the magnetic threads lean the helpful way, the ovals stretch, and the night may hang a soft curtain where you are. Experts manage the chores. You get the option to enjoy the glow. Take a slow breath. Think of wind chimes that ring only when the breeze finds them. Most days they rest. Some nights they sing. The forecast simply tells you when to open the window. Let's make this forecast personal, but still sleepy soft. If you want a routine, Here's one that fits in a pocket and never hurries. In the late afternoon or evening, glance at a simple Aurora summary. If it says the magnetic mood is a little fussy and skies may be clear, tuck away a quiet maybe. After dark, step out for a minute, look north or south depending on your hemisphere, and scan for a pale arch that almost looks like a thin cloud. If nothing's there, go back in. Try again later. The sky won't mind being checked like a simmering pot. A few cozy tools can help without stealing your peace. Set a gentle alert that only pings when conditions improve. Choose one that lets you snooze it, the same way you'd nudge an alarm for 5 more minutes of blanket time. If you live farther from the poles, consider letting the alert wake you only if the forecast suggests the scarf might loosen a lot. That way, most nights stay quiet, and the rare good one taps you on the shoulder. Some people like one more handle beyond KP, and it can stay friendly. A simple Aurora Now, Aurora Later display based on the upstream breeze. If the note says now, you peek outside. If it says later, you go back to your book. The trick is to let the tool serve you, not boss you. It's an invitation to step into the yard with a mug, not a summons. Meanwhile, practical watchers do their everyday chores. Satellite operators may switch modes for a while, like putting electronics in a light raincoat. Power grid teams might adjust how current flows so long lines share the work. Pilots and planners look at radio comfort near the poles and file a route that keeps the cockpit calm. All of this has a steady, practiced feel. These are habits, not emergencies, and they keep your evening free for whatever cozy means where you are. A little myth-busting keeps things clear. Auroras don't drain your phone battery faster or change how your car runs. They don't make the air colder. They don't require snow boots unless your weather already does, and they don't usually make audible sound. If a friend swears the curtains crackled, smile and let the story stand as a lovely legend. The real music is in electromagnetic waves, heard by antennas and instruments, not by ears. Cameras, though, do tell their own stories. They love reds and purples more than your night-adapted eyes do. So a photo may show a crimson crown where you saw a pale glow. That isn't cheating. It's just a different instrument playing the same song. If you want to honor your eyes, cup your hands at your temples, face away from bright lights, and give yourself 5 slow minutes. Green will often drift out of the gray. If you're hoping to share the experience, 2 small courtesies make everyone's night softer. First, keep white lights off. Use a dim red light if you need to move around. It's kinder to night vision. Second, aim headlights and phone screens away from the horizon. The Aurora is a quiet guest. It prefers rooms with low lamps. Space weather scales sometimes come with names for stronger episodes. You might see a note that starts with a gentle letter and number, a shorthand for a bit more activity than usual. You don't need the latter to enjoy the view. Think of it as a range of breezes, light, moderate, fresh. As the breeze freshens, the scarves loosen. When it calms, they tighten. The labels help forecasters talk to each other. Your part can stay simple. Look up when invited, rest when not. What about timing? You already know auroras favor darkness, and often those hours around magnetic midnight. But patience beats precision. A lively hour can surprise you early in the evening or whisper just before dawn. If the forecast is friendly, give the sky 3 short visits spread across the night, an early peek, a midnight check, and a late glance. Between them, return to warmth. The universe will keep without you for a few chapters. If the night delivers, let it be ordinary. You don't need to chase the brightest patch. Find a steady vantage, breathe slowly, and watch the map move. An arc sharpening, a ripple sliding, a ray standing and relaxing. When you're done, leave the place as you found it. Wonder is lighter when it's shared kindly. Gather the everyday pieces in one simple shelf. Watch the sun's breeze through a friendly summary. Let a soft alert tap you only when conditions improve. Trust that practical teams are doing their quiet work. Step out when darkness and clear skies agree. Give your eyes time. Keep lights low, expectations lower, and patience high. Micro summary to close. Space weather is watched like weather. Measured, modeled, handled. When the breeze and the threads cooperate, the scarves widen, and your sky may hang a luminous curtain. Your role can be as small as a doorway glance or as cozy as a blanket and a thermos. Either way, the world hums along while you rest. Take one last slow breath with this image. Wind chimes on a porch at night. Most of the time, they're still. Then a small breeze finds them, and they ring, clear, brief, and gentle. The aurora is that ring across the top of the world. When it comes, it's enough to pause, listen with your eyes, and let the soundless music pass through. Start with kindness to yourself. If you ever go looking for auroras, let it be a gentle evening, not a chase. The best chances gather where three simple things meet: darkness, clear horizons, and a place under the auroral ovals. Darkness means far from city glow. Clear horizons mean open sky, with few trees or tall buildings in the way. Under the ovals means higher latitudes, closer to the crowns that circle each pole. Time helps too. After dark is your window. Many displays lean toward the hours around magnetic midnight, a quiet moment that can sit a little left or right of clock midnight. No need to find the exact minute. Give the night room. Check early, check again later, and keep a little patience between glances. Comfort is part of the plan. Warm layers make waiting sweeter. A hat, gloves, and socks that don't complain. A thermos that steams a little when you open it. Shoes that forgive standing still. If there's a chill, bring a blanket for your shoulders and a mat for your feet. Small comforts keep curiosity open. Pick a spot with a wide view. A hill, a field, a shoreline, a quiet pullout. Park safely. Step away from headlights and let your eyes adjust. They need time. 5 minutes in the dark is good. 10 is better. If you must use light, choose red. It lets your eyes stay in night mode. White beams wash the view and chase away the faint, thin band you're hoping to notice. Expectations can stay kind. Some nights the sky whispers. A pale arch may hover low, almost like a cloud that isn't sure it wants to be a cloud. Give it a few minutes. Watch the edges for a slow ripple or a soft brightening. If nothing happens, that is okay. You still stood under a wide night, and that counts. Cameras see more than eyes. A phone on night mode can reveal green where you see gray. Set it down or brace it if you can. A steady hand helps. If the horizon shows a faint band, try a quick photo and peek. The screen may surprise you, but let the screen be a tool, not the whole evening. Look up between shots. Your eyes deserve some of the show. If the auroral oval stretches toward you, shapes may form. A smooth band can gather a brighter edge, then lift into an arc. The arc can step, fold, or drift. If the curtain dips, the lower edge may carry a pink trace. If the night is very calm above, the top may hold a thin red roof. You don't have to name any of it. There it is enough. A simple rhythm works well. 3 short visits instead of 1 long wait. Step out early evening for a quick scan. Try again near midnight. Give a last look before bed. Between checks, be warm. Read a page, stir cocoa, talk softly. The sky will not take offense if you miss a minute. It keeps its own pace. If you share the night with others, small courtesies make the whole field kinder. Dim your screens. Point flashlights at the ground on low. Close car doors gently. Aim headlights away from the horizon. The aurora is quiet. It asks us to be too. You can read the forecast without making it a task. A friendly summary might say the magnetic mood is a little lively, that the scarves may loosen, that clear skies could reward a short walk outside. Treat it like chance of meteors, chance of fireflies, an invitation, never a demand. If a soft alert pings, peek out the door. If clouds have gathered, save the hope for another night. Safety stays simple. Dress for the weather. Tell someone where you're going if your spot is far. Be mindful of ice, tides, and wildlife. Keep keys, phone, and spare warmth within reach. Wonder should never require strain. If you do see the lights, let your mind rest in their ordinary miracle. You already know the quiet reasons. A steady breeze from the sun, a shield that both protects and guides, small visitors tapping atoms high above. The color is just air giving a little back. Knowing this can make the moment deeper without making it heavy. When the show ends, or if it never quite begins, close the evening gently. Gather your cup, stamp your feet warm. Take one last look at the sky that tried. Some nights are for curtains, some are for stars. Both are part of the same good world. Pocket handles to keep. Dark sky, clear horizon, higher latitude help. After dark, often near magnetic midnight. Warm layers, hot drink, patience. Red light for eyes, phone as helper, not boss. Kind expectations, the sky may whisper. Take a slow breath. Picture a quiet field, your breath a little cloud, your hands around a warm mug. If the scarf of light appears, you'll be ready. If it doesn't, the night was still generous. Now let's widen the circle and give the lights their stories. Many peoples have named them with warmth, not worry. Some imagine dancers, graceful visitors twirling above the snow. Some hear ancestors paying a kind visit, reminding the living to look up. In one beloved tale, a fox runs across the hills, flicking its tail so fast that sparks fly up and brush the sky into color. Others picture spirits playing ball with light, or gentle fires in a land above the clouds. We don't sort or score these stories. They're all small boats pointing toward the same shore. Awe. When you stand under a green ribbon and feel quiet, you are sharing something real with a very long line of night watchers. There's a practical kindness inside these tales, too. They invite good manners. Speak softly, travel carefully, respect the dark. They teach patience, because the lights come on their own schedule, and they give the glow a friendly face. Science is a lantern. Stories are a blanket. On a cold field, both help. Now step outward. Earth isn't the only world that turns a breeze into art. Other planets wear their own crowns. Start with Jupiter, the giant neighbor with the loudest instrument. Its magnetic field is immense, and it has an energetic partner in the moon Io, a volcanic world that sprays material into space like a wild garden hose. That material becomes charged, thus joins Jupiter's magnetic traffic, and powers a permanent city of light at the poles. On Jupiter, the crowns are almost always on, buzzing like neon. The rule you already know still works. Wind, shield, air. The ingredients are bigger, and the spice is Io, but the recipe feels familiar. Magnetic strings, traveling energy, gas replying in color. Saturn's version is quieter, but kin. Its rings and moons live under a strong, orderly magnetic roof, and the poles wear steady, elegant auroras when the sun's breeze invites them. The lights there trace ovals, breathe with space weather, and whisper the same lesson. A shield can protect and perform at once. Mars shows a patchwork. It lost its global magnetic field long ago, but it still holds pieces. Local magnetic umbrellas stitched into its crust. The solar wind meets those pieces and sometimes paints small, uneven glows in the Martian sky. Not crowns around poles, but lanterns over certain rocks. Even with a different roof, the visitors still find a way to turn energy into light. Venus stands without a strong global field at all, wrapped instead in a dense atmosphere and a cloak of electric currents where the solar wind presses. It still gets aurora-like glows when the breeze jostles its upper air, brief blushes of light shaped by a different kind of boundary. New costume, same play. Look farther and the pattern holds. Moons with their own tricks, planets with tilted fields, atmospheres thick or thin, the details change, the seed stays the same. A star sends out a steady stream. A world presents a shape and a set of rules. Energy finds a path. Air or gas or something close to it answers in color. You already carry the grammar. Now you're hearing other accents. Back home, that grammar can make your next clear night feel deeper. When you see a green band, you are reading a sentence written across space. Energy traveled down a string and tapped the air. When you notice a red roof or a purple hem, you are spotting the high room and the low hallway at a glance. When an arc splits and walks poleward, you are watching a fresh set of strings take the lead. This isn't a test. It's a way to feel at home under a huge sky. If you like a single gentle mantra for all of this, try wind, shield, air. The wind brings the possibility. The shield organizes the path. The air makes the light. That mantra works in forests and on ships, in snowfields and apartment courtyards, in telescope pictures, and in a child's first drawing of the night. A few last comforts for the practical heart. If clouds win, the plan still counts. If the forecast changes its mind, you still stepped outside and listened. If the lights whisper when you were hoping for a chorus, you still shared time with a sky that has been generous for billions of years. Wonder is not fragile. It keeps. Pocket summary to keep near your gloves. To see auroras, seek darkness, clear horizons, and patience near the ovals. Use warm layers, a hot drink, and a red light. Let your eyes adjust. Stories from many peoples honor the same awe. Dancers, spirits, foxtails, and gentle fires. Other worlds glow too. Jupiter's neon crowns, Saturn's elegant ovals, Mars's patchy lanterns, Venus's brief blushes. The same rule everywhere. Wind, shields, air, physics turning into art. Take a slow breath. Picture steam curling from a thermos in your hands, your boots planted on cold ground, the horizon wide and quiet. Above, the scarf may appear, lift, and sway. Whether tonight or another night, you belong to a small, kind club, people who look up, learn softly, and let beauty arrive on its own time. Let's land softly. All night, we've been tracing a kind pattern. Energy arrives, our planet organizes it, and the sky replies with color. That's the meaning tucked into every green ribbon and red fringe. You live on a world that is not only protected, but creative. The shield doesn't merely block, it turns incoming fuss into choreography. It's like a house that hums when the wind is right, not from strain, but from good design. Hold the simplest strand first. Wind, shield, air. The sun sends visitors, a patient breeze of tiny magnet-aware travelers. Earth wears a magnetic bubble that opens neat doors and plucks its own strings when the tail releases stored spring. High above, oxygen and nitrogen answer with gentle light. Your eyes collect the glow. Your camera picks up the softer notes. That's the whole lullaby. If any term has slipped away, that's okay. Permission stands. You didn't come here for a test. You came to rest with understanding nearby. You can forget names and keep pictures. 2 scarves circling the poles, a harp of magnetic strings, a curtain that sways rather than shouts, a pocket summary that fits in a whisper, energy in, order made, beauty out. There's comfort in reframing too. The lights aren't a warning siren. They're a side effect of a working shield. Experts tend the practical parts. Satellites, long wires, roots near the poles, quietly and well. Your part can be as small as stepping outside for a minute when the night is clear, or as simple as closing your eyes and letting the idea glow behind your eyelids. Either choice counts. Uncertainty is welcome here. Space weather is variable by nature. The breeze strengthens, then softens. The threads turn friendly, then wander. Not knowing the exact minute is part of the magic. It keeps the world surprising in a kind way. If you watched a pale band turn into a curtain, you met the moment. If clouds had their own plans, you still met the night. Let's stitch the big threads once more, gently and without pressure. Why the poles? Because magnetic doorways open there, and the field lines, your train tracks, dive into the air. Why green most often? Oxygen likes to answer in green at the middle floors where visitors often arrive. Why motion? Waves run along magnetic strings, currents follow, and the air replies in ripples of light. You can stop there and still carry the heart of it. Science can be a good neighbor to wonder when it speaks softly. Pictures before names, names before numbers, numbers optional. If you want meaning at the human scale, pair vastness with tenderness. Out there, a sphere the size of a world wears two glowing scarves. Down here, you wear a blanket. Out there, magnetic strings stretch from night to day and sing in silent notes. Down here, a steady breath rises and falls. The same pattern echoes, tension and release, order and ease. It's a friendly thing to live inside. Thank you for spending this quiet hour with me. If this helped you unwind, you can tap subscribe whenever it feels nice. If you'd like, tell me where you're listening from. A couch, a dorm bunk, a balcony, a ship's cabin on a calm sea. I love seeing our little constellation of places, a soft map made of bedtime learners. Before we drift, tuck a few gentle handles into your pocket for later. Permission. You don't have to remember everything for it to matter. Picture, scarves, harp, curtain. Choose one and let it be your handle. Practice. When a night is clear, step outside once. Breathe twice, look 3 times. Take a slow breath now. In, like lifting a small sail. Out, like letting it ease. If sleep arrives, let it. Sleep counts as learning here. Your mind is good at quietly sorting what it was glad to hear. We'll close in a moment with one last image and a cozy smile. For now, rest in the feeling that your home has a gentle trick. It turns a star's breeze into art, then hangs the painting where anyone with patience can see. Let's gather the story in your hands and fold it small. A star sends a breeze. A planet wears a thoughtful shield. Tiny travelers tap the upper air. Oxygen and nitrogen answer with color. That's the whole arc. It's big enough to fill the sky and simple enough to hold while you drift. Here's a gentle truth worth keeping. The lights are not a siren. They're a kindness from a system doing its job. The shield meets the breeze, opens neat doors, tidies the traffic, and turns part of the work into beauty. When you see a curtain of green, you're looking at order showing its soft face. You don't need to catch every thread to feel the comfort. If a term slips away, let it. Keep one picture. Maybe it's the globe wearing 2 glowing scarves. Maybe it's the sky harp, strings running from pole to pole. Maybe it's a quiet curtain swaying in a draft. Anyone will carry you back here whenever you like. Uncertainty stays welcome. Some nights the scarf appears right on cue. Some nights it doesn't. That's not failure. That's the world keeping a little mystery for later. A forecast can offer good chances, and clouds can still wander in with their own plans. The lights are patient. They will be there on another night, for you or for someone else, and both outcomes are fine. If you'd like a single sentence to keep, energy in, order made, beauty out. It's the lullaby the planet hums. The sun provides the breath. Earth shapes it into a tune. The air sings the notes. You listen with your eyes. That's the concert. Meaning also lives where your life meets the sky. You make tea, You zip a coat, you share a blanket. Above you, a world-sized instrument answers a star. Small and vast happen at the same time, and neither one cancels the other. You are allowed to feel tiny and held, curious and calm, all at once. Thank you for sharing this quiet time. If this brought you rest, you can subscribe whenever it feels kind to do so. If you'd like, tell me where you're listening from. Couch, porch, train bunk, lighthouse, window seat on a red-eye. I love our little map of sleepy classrooms. Before we say goodnight, a soft, domestic smile. If the planet did laundry, Auroras would be the delicate setting. No spin, just swish. The cycle runs, the fabric glows, and everything comes out calmer than it went in. Here's a final pocket recap, small enough to whisper. The poles glow because magnetic doorways are there. Green is common because oxygen loves to answer in the middle sky. Red is the upper room taking its time. Purple stitches the hem when the curtain dips low. Motion comes from waves and currents sliding along magnetic strings. You can tuck that beside your pillow and forget it if you want. Knowing it once is enough. Now a last slow breath. In as if drawing a bow across a string. Out as if the note lingers in the air. Picture the planet playing its sky harp. Quiet, patient, sure. Notes drift along the strings, across the polar stage, and into the soft dark. Let them carry you. If your eyelids have grown heavy, you're doing it right. Sleep counts as learning here. When you wake, the story will still be simple. A star breathes, a shield sings, air glows, and you, lucky you, live under a night that can turn physics into art whenever the breeze and the threads agree. Good night. Be warm. Look up when it's easy. Rest when it isn't. The scarves will wait their turn, and so will we.